over 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, and over 3 centuries after the First Jedi Purge, the Sith would once again surface as a threat to the galaxy. The Great Galactic War, instigated by the Sith Emperor Vitiate and the ancient Sith Empire, ravaged the galaxy and sundered the Jedi Order. As the Republic and its Jedi struggled to repel this new threat, one Sith Lord forged himself into one of the greatest warriors of his day. The corpses of his enemies strewed about the battlefield on multiple worlds. This Sith Lord was Darth Malgus. Born Veridun on the ancient world of Droman Kas, Darth Malgus was the first Sith Lord to engage the Jedi in over 300 years, along with his master Vindican during the Sith recapture of Korriban. In the ensuing battle, Malgus engaged the future Grand Master Satele Shan and butchered her master Kaosin Durach. After the Sith took Korriban, Malgus executed Vindican and assumed the mantle of Sith Lord for himself. As the war unfolded, Malgus would lead the Sith Armada to victory after victory through Republic space, eventually launching a full-scale invasion on the world of Alderaan. However, during the Republic recapture of Alderaan, in his second confrontation with Satele Shan, he was defeated and left severely injured, requiring extensive cybernetic reconstruction to survive. Following his recovery, Malgus would lead the sacking of the Jedi Temple during the Sith's assault on Coruscant, though the resulting peace treaty with the Jedi infuriated him. After Emperor Vitiate's defeat, Malgus attempted to take control of the fledgling empire, though his reign would be cut short when a Republic strike team invaded his flagship and killed him, though rumors of his survival persisted for many years. But Darth Malgus was not the last warrior to serve under the might of an empire ruled by the Sith. Following the galactic-wide conflict known as the Clone Wars and the decimation of the Jedi Order, the Galactic Republic would be twisted into the Galactic Empire. The Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious, and his apprentice, Darth Vader, ruling the galaxy with an iron fist. Over the course of his reign, Palpatine would make use of a number of dark-side agents to accomplish his ends. These so-called Emperor's Hands, being trained in the arts of infiltration, espionage, and assassination. Foremost among them was the powerful Force-sensitive Mara Jade. Arguably one of the greatest operatives of her day, Mara Jade's skills at infiltration, as well as her powerful connection to the Force, garnered her high-ranking positions within Palpatine's inner circle, her abilities even being noted by Darth Vader himself. Following Palpatine's defeat on the second Death Star, Mara was given a final telepathic command by her master: "You will kill Luke Skywalker." Enraged at her master's death, Mara tracked down Skywalker, Palpatine's commands echoing in her mind. However, in an interesting twist of fate, Mara and Luke would develop a close relationship, and the two were actually married, Mara rejecting the Empire and joining the new Jedi Order. After the devastation that was the Yuuzhan Vong War had come to a close, Mara was granted the title of Jedi Master and was named to the Jedi Council, her knowledge and combat experience being instrumental in the Order's recovery in the post-war years. Following the defection of the Jedi Knight Jacen Solo, Mara was one of the few Jedi who suspected Jacen was in league with the Dark Lady of the Sith, Lumaya. After her son Ben informed her of Jacen's dark side ambitions, Mara tracked him to the planet Kavan in the Hapes cluster. Mara was killed by Jacen following their duel in the Kavan caverns, when the latter poisoned her with a hidden dart gauntlet. Jacen would go on to name himself Darth Caedus, assuming the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith, though he himself would eventually be killed by his sister Jaina at the end of the Second Galactic Civil War. Transcending the physical plane as a force spirit, Mara would return to aid her family and their descendants in their time of crisis. First, we will compare their physical attributes. A human male of 60 years of age, Darth Malgus' body was outfitted with extensive cybernetics, the result of the severe injuries he sustained during the Battle of Alderaan. His body was outfitted with heavily armored plating, and he required a respirator mask to enable him to breathe properly. His physical strength was utterly insane, as was his stamina. During combat, Malgus' mask would maximize his oxygen intake, boosting his stamina and allowing him to fight longer and harder. Due to his heavy immersion in the dark side of the Force, Malgus has suffered some dark side degradation and displays the yellow eyes and deathly pale skin common to Sith Lords. However, his physical capabilities don't appear to be overly hampered, though this could likely be attributed to his cybernetics. His physical endurance was also considerable. As detailed in the third lesson, after crawling his way through tons of rock after being buried alive, Malgus engaged and even defeated 2 Jedi Knights, despite the fact that he was suffering from near fatal wounds that would require extensive cybernetic reconstruction. On the topic of cybernetics, one notable aspect about Malgus' suit was the fact that unlike many cybernetically augmented warriors, Malgus' agility was not in the least bit hampered, and he retained exceedingly high levels of speed and agility. The reason for this was likely due to his cybernetics being exclusive to his torso and head, leaving his limbs relatively uninhibited. Mara Jade Skywalker is a human female of 57 years of age. On the surface, her level of physical fitness and agility doesn't appear to be beyond any other trained Jedi, and for the most part, this is correct. However, what made her stand out was her endurance. Over the course of her long and illustrious career, Mara has consistently shown that she was an extremely tough combatant, having persevered through many injuries that would have finished off lesser warriors, from ship crashes to stabbing wounds. She was even able to contend with Lumaya's cybernetically enhanced strength with negligible difficulty, at one point shrugging off a direct hit to the head from the cyborg's reinforced fist. This one's pretty obvious. While Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker are easily comparable in terms of physical hardiness and agility, Malgus' cybernetic enhancements puts him leaps and bounds ahead of his competition. While Malgus' mask is a weakness, it's not one that could severely alter the tide of this battle. Darth Malgus gets the edge in physical ability. Now we compare them as martial artists and lightsaber duelists. Darth Malgus' preferred lightsaber form is not confirmed in any source. However, there was more than enough presented that I was able to draft a set of statistics around him. Arguably the greatest Sith warrior of his day, Darth Malgus was a devastating sight to behold on the battlefield, with decades of combat experience under his belt. As indicated by his many combat depictions, Malgus had a strong preference for aggressive power attacks and elaborate moves. Based on this evidence, I believe Malgus' preferred form was Gemso, a branch of the 5th form of lightsaber combat. Form 5 was a highly aggressive, strength-oriented fighting style, based around following up defensive parries with immediate offensive counters, and a style favored by Sith warriors of his era, along with Shicho, Sarisu, and Juya. As described in the novel Deceived, Malgus was a highly intelligent and calculating duelist, his methods based around anticipating his opponent's moves and responding accordingly. In truth, a very adaptable strategy. As with many Form 5 specialists, Malgus' offense was nothing short of devastating, using his rage to unleash vicious power strikes. His defense was highly capable, using efficient blocks and parries to intercept lightsaber strikes. While Form 5 is noted for its lack of maneuverability, this is a limitation Malgus seems to have overcome, and he was actually quite agile when engaged in one-on-one combat. He would also quite freely apply direct physical strikes into his lightsaber sequences, taking full advantage of his cybernetically enhanced strength. However, his defense against direct physical strikes was relatively weak, and he has been staggered in this manner on multiple occasions. Malgus also possessed some skill in Jarkai dual-blade fencing, as demonstrated with his battle with Kaosen Durach. While Malgus was renowned as one of the greatest warriors in the Sith Empire, he was not without his weaknesses. Despite his intelligence, Malgus was far from being the most tactically inclined of his era. While his strategy in single combat relied on anticipating his opponent's actions, it also drastically reduced his battlefield spatial awareness, and he has repeatedly been caught off guard when his enemies applied radical and unorthodox methods. Perhaps the best example of this would be when Malcolm got the drop on him when he was attempting to break through Satele Shan after she caught his lightsaber, which in turn ended up being the catalyst for his defeat on Alderaan. Trained by many of the greatest sword masters of her era, Mara Jade Skywalker was a master swordswoman, carrying with her a very broad and diverse skill set, thanks to her many years as both an Imperial agent and a Jedi Master. As was the case with many Jedi Masters of her era, Mara was a master of the Three Rings of Defense, the first and most basic lightsaber form used in the New Jedi Order. In a sense, a more advanced version of Shi-Cho, the Three Rings were designed to introduce initiates to the basics of lightsaber combat. With the outer ring utilizing broad sweeping strikes, the inner ring tight fast strikes typically used for blast deflection, and the inner ring was efficient for close quarters combat. While the three-ring style was incredibly simple, in the hands of a master, they became a more than effective tool. As described in the Jedi Academy campaign guide, Mara was also a master of Ataru, the fourth form of lightsaber dueling. Also known as the Way of the Hawkbat, Ataru was a fast-paced and aggressive fighting style that focused on flamboyant blade work and utilizing every part of the body as a weapon. Throughout numerous sources from novels, comic books, to video games, Mara has been depicted chaining in unarmed combat into her lightsaber sequences. Likewise, she has also demonstrated her skill in dual-blade fencing, fighting techniques that Ataru provides specialist training in. While the Three Rings of Defense and Ataru are the only forms Mara is credited with, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that she was also skilled with Form 5 lightsaber combat, a highly aggressive, strength-oriented fighting style based around quick parries and solid defense. As many of the Empire's agents were trained by Darth Vader himself, this made Form 5 extremely prevalent within the Order, and Mara was even credited with being a master at blast deflection, a skill consistent with Gemso, but not Ataru. When fighting offensively, Mara typically carried herself with the mentality of a Nyman practitioner. In addition to her skills with the lightsaber, Mara was an expert in the use of blasters, vibroblades, crush gauntlets, explosives, and others. Rather than relying solely on her lightsaber, Mara would use whatever tools she needed to get the job done, often attacking her enemies with multiple killing tools while simultaneously attacking them with her lightsaber, adjusting her approach and changing her technique to suit the needs of the moment. Rather than trying to fight against the current of her opponent, she instead rode the waves as they came, controlling the fight and exposing a weakness when one was presented. On the whole, Mara Jade Skywalker was a highly aggressive but adaptable fighter, with a willingness to do anything to get the job done. If there's an opening, she's gonna go for it. Dirty fighting, but highly effective. This one is extremely difficult to call. Both Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker are among the greatest duelists of their eras, and both have decades of combat experience. On the one hand, Malgus definitely outclasses Mara in terms of brute force, as his superior physical strength allows him to bring on far more power than his competition. However, Mara's unorthodox and more balanced tactical approach does give her a major advantage over Malgus's blind rage. When examining these two combatants, what we essentially have here is what Jensarai termed in his Asajj Ventress vs. Cedrus video, a ghost versus a tank. A heavy-handed power duelist taking on a quick and tactical fencer. In the end, I feel Malgus's brute force is matched by Mara's unorthodox and intuitive methods, and neither of them has any skill that tips the scale one way or the other. I proclaim Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker equals as martial artists and lightsaber duelists. Now we compare their force abilities. Darth Malgus was one of the most powerful Darksiders of his day, his strength in the Force surpassing all but the greatest of Sith Masters. His use of basic physical augmentation allowed Malgus to perform various feats of superhuman speed and agility common to all Sith Lords. His combative applications of telekinesis were utterly devastating, applying vicious force pushes and pulls to thrash his enemies about the battlefield, sometimes chaining them together into his lightsaber sequences to devastating effect. He was also highly skilled at telekinetically manipulating his lightsaber in combat, using aggressive saber throws to strike out at multiple targets simultaneously. He was even capable of ripping through the force shields of opposing Jedi and choking them to death. Malgus was a practiced hand in the use of Force lightning, and in combat he was able to strike down multiple targets simultaneously. He was also capable of the Force Maelstrom ability, essentially a giant telekinetically reinforced bubble of Force lightning, capable of destroying anything in its path. Malgus can also use Force Scream to amplify his voice and turn it into a sonic weapon, at one point shattering the columns of the Jedi Temple in a fit of rage. He also possessed a limited faculty with Force Stealth, cloaking his presence in the Force to avoid detection, though this ability was rarely used. Telepathy was also not a commonly used weapon in his arsenal. However, he had no real difficulty with the basic mind trick, and would even catch occasional glimpses of the future. On the whole, Darth Malgus was an incredibly powerful Force user, and while he may not be possessing of an incredibly broad skill set, at least in comparison to most Sith Lords, his destructive capability is immense. While she may have only been a Skywalker in name, rather than being part of the powerful lineage, Mara Jade Skywalker possessed a powerful connection to the Force. As Emperor's Hand, many of her missions relied on the use of sneak tactics, scare tactics, espionage, and concealment, and it definitely shows in her abilities. That being said, she can become akin to a force of nature when pushed hard enough. Her use of basic Force-based physical augmentation allowed her to perform the various feats of superhuman speed and strength attributed to all Jedi. She was highly skilled in the combative applications of telekinesis, and would freely apply powerful Force pushes and shoves to thrash her enemies in the midst of combat. Perhaps Mara Jade Skywalker's most notable talent with the Force was her staggering use of Force concealment. Wrapping herself in a veil of Force energy, Mara was able to conceal her presence from all beings in her vicinity. Perhaps her most notable display with this ability was her subsequent spy mission on Darth Vader himself. As a final test for the Emperor, Mara concealed her presence from the Dark Lord for a lengthy period of time and reported on his actions. The fact that Mara was able to conceal herself from someone as powerful as Vader really is testament to her immense skills of infiltration, even by the standards of other Force-empowered spy masters. In addition to her powers of concealment, Mara was also adept in the healing arts, able to rapidly mend grievous wounds and poisons with negligible difficulty. She was even able to hold off the deadly effects of a Yuuzhan Vong biovirus for many months without receiving any form of medical treatment. A feat made all the more impressive when we consider the fact that many of the Vong and their weapons are inherently immune to the Force. She was also a practiced hand in the use of Force lightning, no doubt a carryover from Palpatine's training, though it was not an ability she used often. Mara was also capable of Force stun, where she deadens the senses of a target and paralyzes them, even successfully applying it against other trained Force users. Telepathy was another specialty of hers, and she has displayed notable skills with the Jedi mind trick, though more advanced applications such as battle mind and battle meditation typically eluded her. Of worthy note, she is also one of the few Jedi who is capable of transcending the physical plane as a Force spirit and surviving her physical death. While this ability has no known combative applications, it does speak volumes of her immense levels of understanding and strength to the currents of the living Force. This one's a little tricky. As combative Force users, both Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker stood amongst the most powerful Force users of their eras. Both are highly skilled at Force-based physical augmentation, with neither of them possessing a definitive advantage over the other. As combative applications of telekinesis goes, Malgus and Mara match each other beat for beat, in both magnitude and variety, so there's no advantage there. Admittedly, Mara's applications of concealment far outstrip Malgus's own. However, such abilities are of little use in a one-on-one confrontation. The importance of lightning is also negligible, as both Malgus's and Mara's lightning can be blocked by a lightsaber, despite its destructive potential. While Mara's Force stun ability may allow her to stagger Malgus, I feel the result would be the same as with Darth Malak versus Darth Vader, meaning that Malgus's sheer strength would allow him to power through it before Mara can make an effective move. Telepathy wouldn't play a decisive role in the battle, as both are strong enough to resist such influence. As neither can conclusively overcome the other with their Force abilities, I proclaim Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker equals as Force wielders. Now we compare the armament and tools used by each combatant. Darth Malgus wielded a single-bladed, heavy-duty Sith lightsaber as his primary weapon. The design was incredibly robust and sectional, with two sharpened razor blades along the guard, which in turn added to the weapon's lethality. His weapon utilized a single red synthetic crystal as the focusing lens. Mara Jade Skywalker wielded a single-bladed purple lightsaber of a somewhat sleek make. Her weapon utilized a single purple crystal as the focusing lens. In addition to her lightsaber, Mara also carried a standard blaster pistol and a pair of crush gauntlets. Favored by such groups as the Death Watch and the Mandalorian Elite, crush gauntlets are armored gloves that augmented the wearer's strength to the point where they could break bones and even, on rare occasions, catch and block lightsabers. Malgus and Mara both utilize weapons that complement their fighting styles. The sharp blades on Malgus's weapon adds to its lethal capabilities, while Mara's plethora of weapons allow her versatility. However, the effect Malgus's razor blades have in battle are minimal, while Mara's blaster and gauntlets offer quite a large advantage. Mara Jade Skywalker gets the edge in weaponry. And now, the verdict. Darth Malgus and Mara Jade Skywalker were both highly skilled lightsaber duelists and Force wielders, with many years of combat experience under their belts. While Mara's more level-headed, tactical approach does provide her with an edge over Malgus's blind fury, it does not transfer into a decisive advantage, as they are so evenly matched as duelists. This impasse is not altered by Malgus's physical advantage, as Mara has proven capable of dealing with enemies with similar physical capabilities, namely Lumaya and Darth Vader. I do believe that if the two went straight on, head-to-head, Malgus would bulldoze Mara. the battle turning into Malgus' duel with Ven Zalo all over again. However, Mara is able to get around this because going head-to-head is not her typical conduct in battle. Instead, she balances her options, using whatever tools are available and whatever unorthodox strategies are necessary to achieve victory. Exactly the kind of strategy that would prove useful against Malgus' lack of spatial awareness. Ven Zalo's biggest failing during his duel with Malgus was that he tried to answer Malgus' strength with his own, which for most combatants is a fool's errand. And therein lies the tipping point for this contest. The fight between these two would play out very much like the Mustafar duel, with Malgus standing in for Darth Vader and Mara taking the place of Obi-Wan Kenobi. The battle would be long and brutal. Darth Malgus would no doubt be the aggressor coming on hard, while Mara deflects, evades, and counters. Both would attempt to thrash each other with their force abilities, but neither would be able to overcome the other. However, as the battle wore on, Malgus' focus and control would eventually begin to wane, while Mara keeps calm and chives on, enduring Malgus' assault and searching for any weaknesses she can exploit. And as Malgus starts to overextend himself and screw up, Mara would take advantage of an opening and seize a narrow victory. However, I want to point out that despite his lack of awareness, Darth Malgus is still a force to be reckoned with. And much of Mara's advantages rely solely on Malgus' own failings. And if she lets up for even a moment or makes any mistakes, then she is a dead woman. But otherwise, she is the most well-rounded, if only slightly. I declare Jedi Master Mara Jade Skywalker the winner. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed. I apologize again for the delay, as I was in the process of moving house and was forced to postpone this battle. So I thank you for your patience. Please leave suggestions for future battles in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys later.